Welcome everybody to a brand new episode of MoCast, the World of Warcraft podcast where we talk about specs with a lot of really, really great people, theory crafters, mythic players, and all of that. And today, you read it, you heard it, it's Vengeance Demon Hunter time. Right, Flame?
After a big hiatus, man, we finally back in. We've been trying to get this going for some time now, and we're super stoked to finally talk about Vengeance. And we have a bunch of great people here. And you probably read the title, so you know who it is. But let's not, take over for that. Let's let the people introduce themselves. So let's go with the Discord tag is different, but let's go with Vince from the bottom and go around and let everybody introduce themselves.
All right, hey guys, I'm Vince, and I use Edomai as my Discord tag. I'm one of the theory crafters for Vengeance, and done most of it for this expansion, done a little bit for previous expansions, but not so much.
Okay, so my name is Isaure. I'm going by the same tag as in the game. I've been playing this spec since the first iteration of it, like in beta. I've never, ever since I played this class, I've just stayed on it. Like, nothing can take me back from it. I just love the spec from my bottom heart. Yeah.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
I'm Xephrus. I mostly do Mythic Plus, and I can agree with Isaure here. Like, I tried getting back to other classes, but it's hard if it's only for the double jump. But yeah, I played Rogue back in the day.
Oh, really?
And
definitely can't live without double jump.
Yeah.
I mean, can definitely feel the passion here for this spec.
Man.
I mean, okay, Vengeance as Vengeance, but why not Havoc? Or should I just see myself out?
I mean, if you would really put, my opinion, if you put Demon Hunter next to Warrior, you can say Pro Warriors may be similar to Arms or Fury, but Vengeance feels so different from Havoc. It's like it's totally different.
They don't have the same feel to it. Yeah, no, absolutely.
I don't like the let's say jumpy playstyle, like with dash alone, and I don't even know how the abilities are named for them. Retreat, the Vengeance
Vengeful
Retreat or
Retreat.
something. Vengeful Retreat, right? Yeah. I don't know. High movement specs are not my cup of tea.
I mean,
I'm just
Vengeance can jump around too, no?
Yeah,
sure,
but it's more controlled, right?
Yeah.
So you get to place where you jump instead of just being in a line.
Pretty cool.
Unless path wasn't found.
Well, I mean, it's to nobody's surprise that Demon Hunter is still the class with that's the youngest currently in the game, and well, you can argue of how many iterations Vengeance had, but it's suffice to say that in SHADOWLANDS is a whole different beast, especially with Demonic now being a thing and Fell Devastation being baseline, which is something that last I remember I played it in Legion when it came out up sub 7.2 maybe, but you guys probably know this is best. And to that extent, what iteration of Vengeance did you guys find most enjoyable? It could be a patch or a raid or a whole expansion, or it could be now, and maybe say why specifically.
I guess I'll go first. I would definitely say Antorus 7.3.5 was the single best iteration of Vengeance. I feel that Vengeance was basically designed around the artifacts and the artifact abilities and everything, and losing all that really hurt the class or the spec in a really bad way.
I mean,
I'm afraid I haven't actually played Antorus. I played early Legion, like until the late-ish Nighthold, and then had to step out due to real life. So I guess I missed something there. But honestly, I really do like the current iteration so far. Like, obviously there are issues with it, and there are issues with every spec. Question is, do we have more or less? And I'd like to think we have less, but there's always room to improve.
Yeah. Antorus was definitely like the peak of the DH to me. Like, even the tier set was just top, and it's just a playstyle, and we had everything at this point. And yeah, like Tamai said, everything was baked into the weapon, and when the weapon just was gone, kind of the class went missing, and we just took some here and there for BFA, but a lot of changes. Not
it,
so
it
much
never
big ones.
it never felt as complete as in
Yeah.
Legion, and
Yeah.
I think
I think a lot of classes lost, and everybody was tending to lose a lot, leaving Legion when the artifact weapon was such a big part of the core of it, most, if pretty much every spec in the game. But Demon Hunters seemed to be in a unique position where, you know, it was introduced in Legion, and like you guys said, it felt like Vengeance and Havoc alike felt like they were designed around the artifact abilities and the passives and all of that good stuff that you came with, and then you lost this. So to that extent, I do have a question for you guys, and you can elaborate as much as you'd like. Clearly Vengeance is not the same, and I'm curious to know what you guys think Vengeance lost and would need the most right now, and how do you see Vengeance getting to a point where it can be considered a complete spec? Because obviously this applies to the entire Demon Hunter class, but Vengeance specifically, like, it obviously doesn't have as many tools, utility kits, or damage, or abilities, or playstyles like other tanks have. So what do you guys think it could use? Maybe something that it had before, or how complete do you see the spec right now?
Well, basically for me, like, I've always thought that Demon Hunters, especially Vengeance, are extremely reliant on borrowed power. And so, like, every expansion we get something different, right? Like, we had that in Legion, it was artifact weapons, which we were designed around. In BFA, it's Azurite powers, things like that. And then eventually, of course, corruption, but that was for every class. And now in Shadowlands, it's heavily dependent on the Covenant abilities. Like, if you remove the Covenant abilities from Vengeance, it is very, very weak. And if you, and then the soul binds, of course, and everything. And like, if you try to play without any of those, it feels like a completely different class. And
do you maybe think it was a mistake to make this spec like based on the artifact, or like a borrow power that should go away? Maybe they could like bring back a couple of things and bake it into like the main core of it, because it seems weird to be dependent on borrow power as much as Vengeance is.
Yeah, I mean, like, from what I've seen, so if you remove all the borrowed power and then you take the look at the talents and everything, Vengeance generally, this is the first expansion really where we've had multiple talent options, but even then it's not a great difference. Like, originally at the start of the expansion, Spirit Bomb was pretty okay, but at this point, like, people only use it for extremely large pulls like MDI, and maybe if they're not playing Kyrian, which is, you know, the most popular Covenant by far. To me, the class itself, so we have like Fracture, you know, which replaces Shear. Nobody enjoys playing Shear, as far as I know. Even in VFA, where, you know, we had the one button build with infinite survivability due to gluttony, but you know, Fracture is a much more engaging playstyle, and it's something where, like, Soul Cleave right now is, you know, they're removing the target cap, of course, to 9.1.5, but even then, I feel like they could have made Spirit Bomb instead of a talent. Maybe some, you know, it should be like empowered during Metamorphosis, for example, and, like, you know, upgrade Soul Cleave into Spirit Bomb during meta, things like that. Like, they could have done a lot of things, because right now the class is kind of a mismatch of, like, I think the base idea when they came up with the Vengeance was kind of do everything that all the other tanks do, but not quite as good. So, you know, we have Demon Spikes is supposed to be, you know, mitigation, but it's the weakest mitigation in the game. It's worse than Iron Fur, it's worse than Stagger. You know, Shield the Righteous, Shield Block, all of those abilities are far, far better than what Demon Spikes provides in terms of mitigation. Like, Demon Spikes itself doesn't really prevent that much damage, especially when you're doing high keys. I think Zeph and Isaure can confirm this, but if you don't have meta or brand up with your spikes, a lot of times you can't face tank at high enough keys. And the, you know, the fix to that is supposed to be like, yes, Demon Hunters can heal back the damage with you know, the souls and stuff that we get, but if you look at like a Blood DK, for example, they take about the same damage that Vengeance does with spikes up, but they heal significantly more than we do, like probably twice as much with Death Strikes and everything that empowers Death Strikes compared to how much Soul Cleave heals. And you know, because of the bug, you know, I think I wrote an article on it a few months ago that existed from beta, where there was you know, we were getting the mitigation from magic for both Havoc and Vengeance because they had messed up the spell. And so they thought Demon Hunters were surviving too much. And there was, like we weren't dying enough in beta. And so what did they do? They nerfed all our healing by 25% and they never gave it back. And so like...
After they fixed the bug?
Yeah, like they fixed the bug and then they gave us no compensation in return. And so like our healing has been significantly weaker. We're more healer reliant than ever. And it's just kind of like a weird situation.
It just feels bad. Like you take so much damage, and previously, like during Legion even, like you had Spirit Bomb, that was a big damage button, but that was also a big healing. If you took 5 souls in the face, boom, you just lay on hands yourself. Yeah. And then when BFA, when the one button build was introduced in BFA, like late season, you would just heal so much, but you just did no damage. But the healing was over the roof. Like you could solo tank boss, like Shada, like the boss in Yelota. You could just solo tank it and press one button all the time. You will take all the combo in the face. That was no matter. You will just out heal it by far. Like
I found that incredibly.
It was so dumb. But then you came in Shadowland, and this healing doesn't exist anymore. Like it's not even close. You take so much damage, you don't heal it back. And if you don't have meta, and that's really our single only dev CD, because Fiery Brand, if you don't play the spreading build, it's just single target, and single target against 5-6 mobs, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like Itamae said, Demon Spike not enough. So you just take damage, you don't heal it back, and at some point you just have to peace out from the pack. And that's not good.
It's not engaging attack. But I did want to ask a little bit of a noob question, but I think that's kind of the most people that look at things. I know from Blood Decay that sometimes tank mitigation is not as straightforward as the tooltip indicates. And for me, on paper, because I'm a dumbass, parry sounds pretty good, because if you parry, you take no damage, right? So I understand that I probably... Prot Warrior has the best mitigation in terms of active mitigation with shield block. It's maybe one of the best. But why does Demon Spikes, why is it not that great for Vengeance? Is it the low uptime? Is it just not enough mitigation?
Like
is it too RNG-ish because you kind of rely... Obviously, shield block is 100% block. So that's kind of what you want. And Iron Fur is like, you don't have a chance to not have that armor count towards the damage that you take. So what is exactly wrong, or what could be fixed with Demon Spikes at the very least to start with to make Vengeance more tanky?
So in Raid, DH is fine. Like Demon Spike is fine. But that's when you go in Mythic Plus and you have these long pools that just last and last and last. The uptime is not enough. Like not enough at all. That's when you start to feel it,
You eventually just run out of mitigation, and you need to do those big pulls on hierarchies, otherwise you would just won't make the timer, like especially in halls right now, for example. And 25 seconds in maybe, at the latest, you're running out of your multiple layers of mitigation you have to use there for those pulls, and usually those pulls last 35 plus, if not longer, because it's usually like the kind of pulls that you would last. So obviously, like, I don't know, 45 seconds, maybe even longer. And eventually you have to stop kite, which I guess is all right, but you could also just be a druid at that place and just stand there for the whole time, basically.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that the Blizzard's excuse as to address Demon Spike's uptime enough is feed the demon?
Or feed the demon baseline will be the GOAT.
That's what I mean, because it always, like, up until Shadowlands, it was on the same row as a Fracture, right? I might be. Yeah, and Fracture, again, you guys mentioned Fracture, and I think they should have enough data right now, especially with Pro Warrior as well, because Pro Warriors kind of always want to take Devastator, because you don't want to spam an ability like on and on and on and on and on as a tank, especially a tank that's kind of centric around haste, is just not engaging gameplay. So pretty much any chance that Pro has, they take Devastator, and obviously same as with Vengeance, for a good amount of years now, you kind of take Fracture all the time. So there seems to be some work that can be done there, because Feed the Demon sounds like, oh, that's Demon Spike's uptime, what's the problem? But is it either on a bad talent, bro? Does it just have to be baseline? And obviously, like, probably Vengeance could use as much baseline shit right now as it can get. Yep. And you think that if that's baseline, that would fix it? What would go in its place in the talent?
Feed the Demon is on the line of Fracture. So that's a no-go. Like
Yeah.
you cannot play without fracture.
Yeah.
It's just too much GCD to build souls. Like if you don't play with fracture, you have to spam shear, and you want to use soul cleave at 2 souls. Like if you don't, then the healing is non-existent. So like not playing fracture is kind of trolling, no joke.
Yeah.
So if you have feed the demon of this row, it's a no-go. You cannot think about taking it.
The alternative row it could be in is the first row, I think, because it's the only one, like, at least for keys, where you could at least say, I don't really want agonizing flames. Obviously, DPS loss then, which in turn for survivability, I guess would be fine. But usually you have talents in the same row that do the same thing, or at least a similar thing, like defensive or offensive. And that would feel odd as well, I guess. But like the other rows, it doesn't fit to the sigils, it doesn't fit to demonic, which is required. It doesn't fit to last resort, which is required. It doesn't fit to the legendary spread. So
that's another issue. Demonic is an issue too.
Yeah, I think personally, like, Demon Spikes itself being not that strong of a defensive, like, I think the idea originally behind it was they meant to have a high armor or like a high defensive, because it used to give 15% physical reduction and not just straight armor, and it was much stronger back then, the Demon Spikes, and it had, I mean, it had a cost before, but, you know, it was...
Pain for damage taken.
Yeah, just like reducing the amount of damage that you take is significantly different from how armor works now. And like right now, baseline DH has the lowest baseline armor, and Demon Spikes really doesn't improve that. Like if you look at the numbers, a Prot Warrior not doing anything, like literally standing in town doing nothing, has more armor than a Demon Hunter with spikes active. And so if you think about that, a Prot Warrior is reducing damage on top of that with shield block. You can see why the difference of how much damage taken between a Demon Hunter and a Warrior is so much. And like, I believe a DK with Bone Shield has about the same armor as a Demon Hunter with spikes up, and DKs basically always have at least one stack of Bone Shield. Like you don't tank without Bone Shield. So
yeah, it's pretty easy to maintain it all the time.
Yeah, so like if you're looking at that, like the amount of damage that Demon Spikes reduces for how short of the uptime, or like how little uptime it has, it's not like, even having Feed the Demon, I don't think really fixes that issue. It's definitely like a band-aid kind of step, letting us have more uptime on it so that we take more damage or take reduced damage more often, and it would be good, but like it doesn't fix the base problem that we're taking way more damage than basically any other tank if we don't have meta up.
Yeah, I think something in between what could be done is like reducing the Demon Spike cooldown or charge refresh by haste so much that you can actually achieve having perma Demon Spikes by simply, I don't know, stacking haste. Like eventually we're gonna reach like 25% haste or more in, I don't know, 9.2 probably already.
Yeah.
So, but that will still obviously feel bad, like for the half of the expansion prior. So
yeah, like every time you start an expansion, I mean, I can understand like tanks getting stronger through the course of an expansion is good, but you know, baseline, I feel like Spikes needs some sort of buff.
And to me, that's just like, that's mostly a mythic plus issue, because again, in raid, I don't feel like there is any problem with DH. Like the way the class is, maybe it lacks a bit of single target damage. Like single target of DH is kind of low, but yeah, as soon as there is a lot of mobs, then it's completely fine, like more than fine. But yeah, the single target is really lacking, and the impact of the spells we have is where it doesn't follow up, because like you have Sigil of Flame, this spell is not worth pressing at all. Like it doesn't do damage. Like pressing the button kind of make you lose DPS because the GCD isn't worse, and that's an issue too. Like the spells could be just better, to be honest.
Yeah, more impactful. Everything needs to be more impactful.
That's what we seek. Like pressing meta, it's the same. Like it doesn't last long enough to me. Like for a 3-minute cooldown, and what it gives you compared to Incarnation, like you press Incarnation, 3-minute cooldown, you have this for 40 seconds. You have meta for what?
15,
what is the duration of
18?
meta? That's 15, yeah? And during those 50 seconds, you just have more HP, yeah? You have more armor, yeah? But you just build 3 souls when you press Fracture. That's about it.
You still die like in large pools.
And you
just
still
get
die.
up.
And you
Like,
still die.
Yeah,
yes.
your meta used to be an immortality button. Like in Legion, you press meta, you could not die. Period. Now you press meta, you can absolutely still die.
So you guys think it has to do with the tuning that they've had for the demon hunters over the years? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't demon spikes just get nerfed in the last year or two, probably a couple of times? I remember certain scaling for demon spikes were nerfed consistently. Maybe I'm misremembering. And
Was it in BFA?
It was in BFA. So after Legion, when they decided that tanks would be a healer mechanic instead of being self-survivable, they removed all the magic mitigation. They converted all % damage reduction into armor. So like Shield of the Righteous, Demon Spikes, all those things used to give flat physical reduction or, flat all damage reduction. And they converted everything to armor. And so like meta originally was 100% armor increase in Legion. But because armor was worth so much more, because you didn't have everything else affecting armor, that it was a very powerful cooldown. And now they buffed it to 200% armor. But because everything else also gives armor, and armor has, diminishing returns on the scaling, it's not nearly as powerful as it used to be.
And we can talk a little bit about the current performance of Vengeance. Well, kind of like the issues it has, and obviously maybe we can also point out the good parts. Because when I think of Vengeance, I'm a multi-class. I kind of play all of it, and one of my main tanks that I like to play is Pro Warrior. I kind of try to put them side by side, which is obviously not really relevant. But you think of Metamorphosis like, okay, big ass cooldown. I'm tough. I'm not gonna die. So I think, oh, shield wall, right? Damage reduction. Although we can compare 40% flat damage reduction to armor, because damage reduction is all damage reduction. And then okay, well, sure, if meta is equal to shield wall in a sense in terms of defensiveness, but then warrior has Demo Show, which has damage reduction, then it has spell reflect, which I guess you have tattoos, but I feel like pretty much all of the tanks have at least 1 or 2 extra defensive cooldowns aside from what Vengeance has. Because I mean, unless they make Fiery Brand split baseline, I mean, it's just a little bit weird. And again, we can maybe you guys can talk a little bit more about this, because just to mention the Sigil of Flame. As a side note, I did my Torghast last week on Vengeance, and I picked all of the powers that buffed Sigil of Flame, and I had like 300 or 400% extra damage on it, and it still did like almost auto attack damage. And I was like looking at like, you have Torghast. They've said that they're using Torghast to like test what kind of changes they can do to a spec, and you have these 300% extra damage on one of a core baseline ability. And I was like scrolling on the details to see, okay, where in the list is Sigil of Flame in terms of damage? And I couldn't find it. But with that out of the way, because I was looking at the top of performance, at least in Mythic Plus for Vengeance, and everybody obviously was Mechanicos, Elysian Decree, and I think Dark Glare Boon were some people using. Probably that's, top logs usually just pull like crazy maniacs. But I was seeing in raids as well, Razilix, whatever, the cooldown reduction on the Sigil. So it seems like pretty much everything that Vengeance does is optimizing damage gain, because I would imagine that the defensive options that are available in the patch or the expansion are just not that great. How do you see Vengeance performing in the current meta? What could fix the issues?
So, as Isaure already mentioned, in raids, I don't see issues. Like, even Demon Spikes itself is fine there, because like half of the time, obviously, you're only tanking. There's no... is there no boss where you're sort of tanking? Don't think there is.
No.
And, well, you can compensate your downtime of Demon Spikes there by not tanking.
You have cooldown.
You kind of can't do that in Mythic Plus. So, like, you would think so because you have, I don't know, downtime between pulls or something, but you're not really waiting for Demon Spikes because it wouldn't be worth it. Like, neither the time nor the uptime you have on Demon Spikes then, because it's like gone after, 6-8 seconds again. And yeah, even like if you layer it in Mythic Plus, you just run out of it eventually, and then you're sitting there running away.
I mean, I could be devil's advocate here and say that, it does a lot of damage. No mitigation, but does it compensate? Because you know, one of the funnest thing, I'm coming from the perspective of an outsider. I just enjoy watching it from the outside, and I always felt like one of the coolest tanks in the game had to be Vengeance, just because of the raw amount of damage it can dash out. I don't know if is that the case anymore, because last season at least it was kind of dominating. Was it Mythic Plus?
It was pretty high. I mean, it was
because
played
of the
in MDI and
damage
everything.
mostly. I don't know about, you know, not quite sure about medication, but I would think so. If you were to have a chat with someone on the WoW team, the WoW dev team, I'm pretty sure one of the arguments that would come up, yeah, but you do this amount of damage. You know, the Demon Spikes is shit, but what about your damage? You know
We
what I
do a
mean?
crap load of AoE damage. The AoE damage is
AoE.
like the strong point of our class, for sure. But like I said, the single target, non-existent. We do really,
Yeah.
I think, above all the tanks, we do the lowest single target. And I might be wrong. Maybe DK, but above all the tank, we do the less single target damage.
Yeah.
But that's not an issue because, like, whatever, in Mythic Plus, the most part is during pull. So
Yes,
Yeah, we're
during
fine.
AoE.
I would be fine having low single target damage if you could
Yeah.
at least tank the AoE pulse, but since we can't, it's kind of an odd scenario. Then again, of course, in like 15 or 20 keys, you're still fine. Like,
You're fine, yeah.
like
Yeah.
if you know, if you put in, as we say on the Demon Hunter Discord, if you're pushing the buttons often enough, you're fine in 2021. But above that, it's gonna be like tough. And if you're not playing the recurring legend or viable legendary there,
Yeah.
looks a
It's
bit
weird.
dark.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the issue of the age. I think for the most content, it's all okay. But like when you just want to push yourself up there,
mhm.
that's where you start to see big issues, like really big issues.
Yeah, the spec breaks down at very high levels.
Right. So, and probably this is a symptom of, you know, the initial design of it being, you know, built around the borrowed power, is artifact weapons and such. So I'm just like circling back to, okay, we're probably expecting a next expansion at some point. I honestly don't believe they will be able to fix anything in the future patches. I don't know if they have the time or the manpower. I don't know. But let's say future expansion. Would you guys agree that, you know, they just have to like bake in a lot of the, or let me put it differently. So take something from Legion, right? From, I would say like the artifact weapon or whatever, and, you know, place it into the baseline kit. And if there were to be a couple of parts from that, well, what would they be?
I have one that I will fight my life for. Like Painbringer. Painbringer was the best
Yes.
reduction. Like it was passive reduction. You just do nothing, you absorb souls, and when you absorb souls, you gain passive damage reduction. This little stuff that would be huge, like so huge.
Yeah.
And there was that. I guess the fire damage healing was fine, but again, we don't have that much healing now, so and the damage isn't that high. And since we don't use Spirit Bomb, not so much anymore, so fire damage is non-existent because Sigil of Flame isn't really damage. But yeah, mostly, like, Painbringer would be huge. And I don't know, I really like Gluttony. Now we have Demonic, so we can control it, but that's a talent. And I think that should be baked in. Like, it's a no-go. Like, Fell Devastation alone, having the spell is cool. Like the spell is really cool. You vomit flame on the mobs and shit. That's really fine.
Pretty cool.
But like not having demonic after it, the spell is pretty much useless. But it doesn't do that much damage. It's equal to Soul Cleave for the cost. Like I think Fell Devastation is 50, Soul Cleave is 30, and if you just add the damage, it's not so much, and the healing is non-existent. So if you press Fell Devastation and you don't have demonic, it's like you kind of wasted. Wasted it.
It's actually a survivability loss to press Feldev if you don't take demonic, because you're taking damage. You can't dodge or parry during Feldev, so
the Darkler Medallion legendary without demonic would be like actively wasting money on it.
Yeah,
because,
it's wasting money if you take that.
It's so bad. And like we have a conduit that increases the amount of healing that Feldev does, and Feldev's healing is so low that it's not even a consideration. Like it's the last conduit that you would ever equip.
And that's funny because that's from a tank point of view, because Feldev actually heals a lot for Havoc.
Yeah.
How much was the conduit healing again? Like above 10% increase, right? Something like that.
I have no idea. I never looked at it.
I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's like a 70% increase to Feldev's healing, but Feldev's healing is so small, you know.
3 to 5 depending on key. So yeah, you can do the math, I guess.
So is it a more of a problem of not enough healing or just too much damage taken? Because as I've played both Prot Paladin and DK in last season, and it kind of felt like after a point Prot Paladin turned into a Blood DK as well, where Shield of the Righteous didn't really seem like a worthy global, and you probably just want to use Word of Glory, and I'm like, well, okay, well, what am I playing now? I'm just building resource and healing, building resource and healing. I mean, okay, sure, it kind of makes sense for Blood Decay, but okay, we have that for Prop Paladin. It kind of looks like Vengeance is the same. One of our friends was our tank for the season, and in AoE the healing was pretty good at the time. So it kind of felt like, okay, but why? Why do all the tanks have to have healing? So personally, I would prefer if the tank was just up front more tanky and not have to rely so much on sustain. But what do you guys think? And is there something that you could do to either address the armor or healing? And if what do you think would probably benefit Vengeance more? Not armor, but rather.
I think we mentioned the Felderization baseline healing it's there, but it's like non-existent. But if you would take away what we got through this season alone in Mythic Plus, it's around 40% less healing that we would do. And if around 40% less healing on the tank, like the healer can't supply that. We couldn't play it with all those borrowed stuff, like, or at least not on.
Yeah, the new defensive conduit. What's the name of it?
Condensed Atmosphere.
Yeah, Condensed Anima. This alone does so much more than anything we have.
Yeah. Twice.
And the thing is, when you look at an overall healing of a dungeon at the end, like most of it, it's not from us. It's trinket. It's Stoolbinder. And if you take away this, then we surely die. Like yes,
it's clear.
We are dead.
Obviously, you could still time the key, but you have to go so much slower. Because you have to half the pull. So.
I don't know, man.
But to me, it will be a little bit of both. Like we could use a bit more healing. Like the nerf we got, I don't get it. I don't. Revert it, or maybe just give, like, they nerfed it by 25. Just give us 20, or I don't know. Like I just take some, and maybe a bit more of tankiness too, because like we obviously need it. But we need it in a content that most people don't do actually too. So that's something not everyone sees because they don't actually do it. So obviously when someone sees a DH in a 15 key and it's destroying the meta and all they see is the damage, like that's super cool, and you have a lot of good view on your class. But when you just go up there and the meta switches and you start to see more bigger pools, the DH cannot handle it because they are just not tanky enough. And what's funny is that right now, if you check the big boys, like what class they play, you see all of the tanks represented in the top 10, but they play with classes that will just make your class glow up. Like they play with boomies, they play with frost mages that will just slow for you. They play with shamans that will just put an earthly for you. So you just tank for some times, and then it's the DPS that will actually help you get through it, because they will have slows, they will have trees, they will have the totems or whatever. Like it's not because you're a tank, it's because you have the classes that will help you. And it's mostly the DPS that will do the keys, because you do the pull, you grab it, you tank it for some seconds, and then you just have to go out of there because you just cannot stay.
This is kind of a symptom of what I said earlier, where they decided in BFA that tanks would be a healer mechanic, is that instead of tanks kind of being, you pull, you tank, and like in Legion, you kited because your group would die if you didn't kite. It wasn't you kited because you would die. And so you could pull huge, and then you could negate a lot of mechanics by running away and letting your DPS kill them. But if you wanted, you could just face tank and even solo a lot of things. Like even on the highest keys, 28, 29, 30 in Legion, Vengeance and Blood and a couple other tanks were able to just completely solo tyrannical bosses. It took like 10 minutes or something, but you could do it. And now if you are left alone by your healer, for a minute or whatever, you're probably dead.
It's a big difference from completely tanking it to like commit it. I always felt like, unfortunately, with Demon Hunter, the way that they introduced it, they already introduced it, so it's no taking back it. You would always have to have some parts of whatever the expansion introduced to the class to come baseline, like a couple of things from the artifact weapon baseline, some Isaure traits becoming baseline, or whatever essence effect maybe baseline.
Vengeance needs it all, man.
Yeah, it's the entire class, unfortunately. But if they're gonna, talking about Shadowlands specifically, if they're going to give something baseline to Vengeance from what we have now in the expansion, either talents that they introduce now, like demonic baseline, or maybe Elysian Decree or something similar to that amount of baseline. What do you guys see?
Elysian Decree baseline?
Yeah.
I mean, they could replace Sigil of Flame with Decree and basically, turn it into fire damage instead of arcane. But if they did that, that would be a big help. I mean, I'm pretty sure they tuned Sigil of Flame low because they gave it as part of the talent where, the first row talent, Abyssal Strike, where when you jump, you drop the Sigil of Flame, but it does so little damage that it doesn't matter. And like if they replaced Flame with Decree, that would be like a huge step towards, not needing external sources in order to deal, enough threat to hold aggro.
Yeah, someone dug up a upper Karazhan lock from Legion earlier, and Sigil of Flame there in like 16 minutes only did like 12% of the total damage, which is considerably more than we have right now. And even if you double the damage and play like Abyssal Strike, we wouldn't reach that now.
Yeah.
Totally different story.
I mean, I press it when I'm kiting because I have nothing else to do until Flame for some reason has a cooldown.
Sigil of Flame right now is like a pulling tool, like Throwglaive, or it's just I have to run away, and the only thing I can do is Sigil of Flame. But you will not use it if you are in a pack. Like that's no go. But like, did they nerf Sigil of Flame going into BFA, or was it the weapon that increased our fire damage? I think
it was a combination actually. They changed the scaling originally because in Legion everything was based off your weapon damage, if I remember correctly, and then they changed it to like AP scaling or something like that, and at that point it just didn't do a lot of damage.
Coming from the outside here, because I hear there's a lot of issues with Vengeance at the high level, and we kind of say this all the time in our videos, tier lists and guides and stuff, like, hey, if you want to like do 15s, get your curves or whatever, but it's fine. I don't see you having any problems.
And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's a really good class for 15s and like casual rating.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to, right? So I'm pretty sure we're gonna have people, watching, listening, who are, interested, never played Vengeance, maybe played other tanks. What would you guys, tip or advice brand new up and coming Vengeance Demon Hunter? What would be like the first, 3 things he or she should be aware of, or start climbing a little bit on, starting on this is 10, then it's 12, then it's 15 or whatever. What would you say to a new guy?
Log your runs, layer your defenses. Don't like throw everything out in like, I don't know, you don't for mobs or something. You don't need meta, Felt Devastation on top, Fury Brand and Demon Specs. Of course you could do it because you have it all available, but yeah, at the latest at the next pull you will feel that you maybe should not have done that. And logging is like very helpful. Figure out.
Logging is useful for yourself, and it's also useful when you want to get help and you're asking for help, but you don't have anything to show. Yeah. So when you log something, you just have something to prove that you did this, and someone can check it and they can see, here you did something wrong and you could press this a bit more. But yeah, one of the most important thing when you play a tank is actually pressing your button. Like so many people just don't press them. They just like to wait and maybe use them at the right time, but there is no right time. You just have to press stuff, and eventually you will, by doing something a lot, you will just start to think maybe this will be done at this time, or like should I keep meta for this or whatever. But at the first, you just have to get in there and you just have to see by yourself, because tanking is like, it's a hard role for me, because for DPS you can learn to do damage on a dummy or whatever, but when you tank, there is nothing in the world that will show you I can do a 15 because I can tank the damage of the 15. You can't know that. You have to get there and you have to do it. You have to experience. And one of the most important thing about tanking is not you have to go in without fearing, because you will fail. That everybody fails, but you have to do it.
You have to have the confidence.
Yeah, you have to have
Yeah.
the confidence at some point. You just
You try
Go
it.
in.
If it fails, you try it again, or you change the pull. You change what you've done. You just have to do it.
But yeah, I don't know. The class is so much fun. Like itself, just jumping around, double jump gliding, you have so
Yeah.
much fun. I think one of the cool things they could do is give us weapon when we are in metamorphosis form. Because why don't we have them? I don't know.
Please,
But
Blizzard, give
us weapon. That
custom
would be great.
demons. Give us
But
weapons.
yeah, the class
Druids
is just
get,
so
like-
much fun to play, even though it has its flaws, and it's so much fun. For me, ever since I played it, I cannot look back. I'm bored on everything else I play.
It's so nice.
It shows. It definitely
click.
shows the passion
Yeah.
for vengeance. I don't think we ever had this much passion coming through like in any other podcast with any spec, for sure. But we usually have this weird segment on the podcast where we go into a little bit into the creative zone. So here it goes. You get picked up by Blizzard, where not now, okay, when the good Blizzard, right?
When it gets good again.
Okay, so Ian comes to you and say, "Okay, man, listen, you're gonna be in charge of the Vengeance Demon Hunter spec. Okay, what I want you to do as the next project is to invent an ability for the spec. Now, what would that ability do or be or look like or whatever? Because I know you have a lot of ideas from the artifact weapon and shit like that, but if you were to like bring something new, like absolutely new, that could possibly fix everything in one go, what could that be? Improved metamorphosis. Next level
Yeah,
shit.
bigger
Mm.
demon.
When I played in Legion, we had so much stuff, and this stuff to me was more than fine. But creating something new,
It would be, for me, it would be an ability that has some use while close to the mobs, but also some, or even maybe better use from range, and is not like zone bound like sigils are. Like,
yeah,
you could still use it in raid to pull or something. You could use it, I don't know, to tag something far away. But you could also use it while on boss and do like maybe even decent damage or damage probably, since single target is lacking anyways.
How about a brand new ability? Like I'll just put the context here. So you see like the true form of a Vengeance Demon Hunter is through its metamorphosis. I always feel
Yeah.
that way because it gets beefed up.
I mean,
and it looks
who wants to play a demon hunter, Vengeance or Havoc, and doesn't want to be
metamorphosis.
like a big,
yeah.
big edgy demon?
That's the thing. But
Yeah.
maybe some sort of ability that could work, can have an AoE component and a single test. So it can hit, the target in front of you, like the, raid boss. But it also has like this sort of like Arms Warrior overpowered thing, like a seismic type of wave where it can hit, 5 more or something like that.
Yeah.
And when you hit that ability, it procs demon spikes. It's not spammable, it's rechargeable. But, you can mix up a little bit of damage and a little bit of survivability. Is that something that could work maybe for Vengeance?
to me, what you just said is basically Spirit Bomb. Like,
But not
To
just
me-
Spirit Bomb, man.
yeah, but I know, but to me,
Just like
what you said is
first-
Metamorphosis is the
Yeah.
core of the class, yeah?
Yeah.
And it is. That's the thing. And you just love being a big Metamorphosis, like
Yeah.
big demon. That's cool. And what I would love is to have more stuff baked in it. Like when you're under meta, everything is just bigger and
Yeah.
Like empower everything.
yeah, you just
Make everything better.
the same way that Havoc does when you're in meta. It's not Chaos Strike, it's Annihilate, and it's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
Blade, it's Death Sweep.
Yeah.
And I would love to have this kind of stuff in Vengeance meta, because I don't know, like just pressing Immolation Aura, you just press it and it's a big immolation and there's flame everywhere, or I don't know, like that would be cool. And
Something.
yeah, just give more importance to everything you press when you're under meta. That will be like so much better. And that's when I think Spirit Bomb, and the way they want us to use it is not spam it. So that's why I feel like they don't like the talent right now. Like
Yeah.
just change Soul Cleave and make it Spirit Bomb when you're on meta. And this way the spell just exists when you're on meta. but you just feel more powerful. Because Spirit Bomb, when you press it, to me, Spirit Bomb is like a big explosion, and I love it. Ever since this spell was created, that's my favorite spell in the game by far. And not playing it right now makes me a bit sad because I just love this spell. And seeing it when we're in the meta will be so much to me. But yeah, creating something new, I have no idea, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like,
But I feel like
like something completely new is very
It's
difficult
hard.
to do. But
I
like,
know.
there's so many little things they could do that could improve the spec. I mean, if we build on what Isaure said, like during meta, Shear and let's say Shear and Fracture were separate abilities, and instead of Fracture replacing Shear, you can make Shear AoE when you're in meta automatically, and then we have an AoE generator instead. That way we're not stuck, like right now we have to Soul Cleave or Spirit Bomb in order to get AoE threat, and even if you're in meta and like at the start of a pull when you're generating resources, you're still hitting single target unless, obviously outside we have Decree, but if you don't have Decree available, you're not going to press Sigil Flame to generate threat. You're using Immolation or you're using Leap, and then you have to build with either Fracture or Shear, and then Soul Cleave. And if they made a generator that hit an AoE, that would fix a lot of things when you go into a pull with meta up.
I don't recall the name of the artifact weapon ability, but I feel like that would be close to what I would like to have, like another generator that also does like, I don't know, some damage. I think it applied a dot later on as well or something.
And it like...
Well, itself... Was it a dot?
I
No,
think
it wasn't
applied like a dot.
I think it did damage.
It was a
and
direct
then,
hit, and then it spawned souls, yeah?
Yeah, it spawned like 3 souls, similar to Decree. So it was like...
Just that an AoE, which I guess is Decree then. It's hard.
You see what they did there? No, but
they took with one hand and gave with the other.
Whatever they do,
It was actually a dot after it. I'm just watching the spell right now.
Like,
It was
why is that dot,
initial
for example,
damage.
not AoE?
It was initial damage, and then there was a dot, and then it will give you more souls. Yeah.
But I think you guys touched on a very, very important point, and they're obviously doing this with Havoc to an extent by changing Chaos Strike and Blade Dance to their empowered version while you're in meta, and I feel like they could definitely do this with Vengeance as well. Maybe make meta something that can be a little bit more accessible, aside from one every minute. But if you're gonna make it one every minute, I don't know, make it a little bit more impactful and obviously change things in it. Then you can get away with like, okay, I don't need 6 bars of ability, but I have one that constantly changes. Kind of like, with Druid getting different abilities in every shapeshift, you can get something different.
Yeah.
To me, that would be so good. Like I love that.
Yeah,
Empower
it would make
abilities during meta would make so much sense actually too.
it just makes it way more interesting. And then of course they can give us some cosmetic forms, like druids with all their custom forms. Give us a little love here, Blizzard.
They're getting another 4 different, I think.
Yeah, 4 new travel forms or something, and we're still stuck with the same meta animation we've had since Legion beta.
Yeah, there's definitely opportunity there for sure. But I say like whatever they decide to do, it has to stop with the bar power because the spec like Vengeance. Once again, it never crossed my mind that it actually is true, because this was the spec that was introduced in Legion, and Legion brought in the artifact powers and artifact weapons. Sorry. And it was like the first big ass form of borrowed power, because you can talk about borrowed power on tier sets, right? On different
we had that
trinkets.
too.
Yeah.
There was
It's true.
too.
It's true. And speaking of that, we're kind of all expecting in 9.2 some tier sets.
But we have tier sets right now. Didn't you hear?
Oh, you know about the domination charts? Have you heard?
That doesn't work in dungeon. Yeah.
No, we're not going into that.
Such a good point.
But seriously, on tier sets, like, do you guys feel they could have like maybe an opportunity for upcoming tier sets for Vengeance to maybe address some of these things? If granted they are like proper tier sets and not some weird ass bullshit.
5% extra damage.
As I said, I'm not a big creative person, but like tier sets during Legion, actually, 2 of the sets were useless because they were useless, legit. And the last one, it was they just made the best one they could ever do. Like they made it so when you parry, you gain your CD of meta. So you
Pretty cool.
you had
Yeah.
meta all the time, and that was huge. That was so
yeah.
huge. And we had that too in BFA, where the meta CD, because we played with Vision of Perfection, and we had this talent Gluttony, we just had meta all the time. And meta was so good at this point that being in meta all the time, I'm sold. I'll just take that all the time. And Vision of Perfection made the talent, the Metamorphosis CD, what, 2 minutes? 2 minutes?
Yeah,
and a half?
2 minutes. Yeah,
2 minutes.
2:15 or something.
2:15, yeah. And this long CD, the class felt really good because 2 minutes is nice because it doesn't last too long. So obviously, Metamorphosis being 2 minute CD makes sense. But 3 minutes for 15 seconds? This chess set was huge. But now that I think of it,
I mean,
it's
maybe
their job, to be honest.
maybe just have a tier set reduce the cooldown for meta to 2 minutes or
Yeah, but see,
Something like that.
this is the
That would
interesting part because when you think about it, pretty much the times when everybody had a lot of fun with Vengeance was when you had a lot of meta. You had Vision of Perfection.
Yeah, just
then-
give it to us,
now,
man.
Now they gave us Demonics. It was like, okay, you clearly know that we like to be a big fat demon. Why not just make it a thing? Why does it have to be? Why does it have to be a 3 minute cooldown and then like kind of like what Fiery Brand in between, which is like. Okay, I suppose.
Fiery Brand is good, but on single target. Like you just feel it on single target when you're in Fiery Brand, you will never die. Or it's a big tank spank, but that doesn't exist that much. But yeah, in AoE, when you compare Fiery Brand, what is Fiery Brand for another tank? Is
It's technically wall, so
yeah.
it should be equivalent to Shield Wall or Survival Instincts or Guardian of Ancient Kings, things like that. But it's single target and slowly spreads.
It used to be really great in Legion because pressing this button was actually a burst. Because you had this
There's a trait,
what is
right?
it? Yeah, the weapon trait that when you press Fiery Brand on the mob, it will take so much fire damage more. Like, was it 70% if you had three of the thing?
Yeah,
And
3 relics.
you will do so much damage, and you had a burst, like a legit burst, like a DPS. And then they made it a talent in BFA, and they saw that nobody took it. So
Well, they also nerfed it to 20%.
and they
from
nerfed
70,
it too.
so-
Yeah. But like that time felt good because you actually had this button made damage, and it make you deal more damage, and it was also def CD, but you had more utility than to be actually tanky. But now Firebrand feels a bit lackluster because single target, and if you want to make it spread, you have to invest talent points, you have to use a legendary with it. That's a bit too much to turn around one build, I think.
If I remember correctly, the Nighthold 2-set bonus or the 4-set bonus was basically Feed the Demon, right?
It was
Because-
something, yeah.
Yeah, but that
That
was the
was-
2-set. I think that's the 4-set that
Yeah,
was not played.
That was actually decent as well. Like if you just gain like an additional talent point basically for the raid set. Like granted,
Yeah.
it must be like in a good row. Like I don't think I'm happy having Feast of Souls because I mean, yeah, it exists, but
And they haven't found a way to nerf it.
it would need to stack or actually increase the healing over the time. But if it
That
does it
would
right
be
now,
huge, actually. That would be huge.
Yeah. then
Yeah.
but half of the talents are so hard locked, or getting access to Soul Barrier would also be really nice for maybe not 5 souls price.
Yeah, I mean,
something
Soul
like that.
Barrier, they nerfed it. They also nerfed it in Shadowlands, so that's why it's not as good as it used to be.
What
It used to have a Soul Barrier.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it doesn't compare now because it used to have a minimum absorb, and it would never go away for that full 12 seconds during the minimum absorb. And the more souls you ate, the more shielding you got. And so on like large pulls, it actually contributed a lot of healing because it would be up for the full 12 seconds, and it would always at least absorb that much.
Basically,
And in
yes.
Shadowlands, they removed that minimum, and as soon as you use up the absorb, it's gone. You can't refresh it, so it lasts like 1 hit and then it's gone. Period.
But that's one thing I missed from BFA too. It was this Azurit talent that Azurit trade that will give you soul barrier after that was consuming souls. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love that. that was a small thing, but it was something that they gave to us, and I really felt it when we are missing it now. Because, like Xephrys said, our talents, they are not really talents because you have to play with them. And if you don't play with them, it's kind of trolling. Like, not playing Last Resort is, why would you get rid of a cheat test? And same for Demonic, why would you take away meta uptime, right? And yeah, Soul Barrier being on this row feels a bit sad. I really like this spell too. It was really played in Legion actually too.
Yeah.
It feels like we have 100 different pieces of puzzle, and I guess that's more or less all for the same class, for all classes. Like, feel like we have a sandbox environment behind us that we could use now to, pick the good pieces. Maybe some bad as well, because obviously not everything must be overpowered.
Yeah, but
and then build something good with it, or better. I mean, it is. After all, it is viable. It's not like we're talking about that spec here, but
the class is really, really strong though. Like, if you're not doing like high-end content, DH is just so good. Like in raid, you will always have a spot if there is not a Havoc DH, and even then in raid, like playing Painsmith, like the boss Painsmith as a DH.
Oh,
you just jump everywhere. You just go behind the spikes. The fight is, some tanks they need a bop to go behind the spikes. You just go around them, and that's so much actually. Like you just find so much cheese possibilities with the DH. That makes it amazing. And yeah, when you do keys, you can get away so easily with it because you will do so much damage and you have actually decent tanking. That's just when you get to the high point, and I guess that's not where the game is aimed at too.
Probably.
Like they are not balancing. They are not balancing for high point. So it's nitpicking because we actually do this kind of stuff, but not everyone does, and this we can agree with. So that's nitpicking, to be honest. Because the class is fine on itself, but there could be always better things. Like you can just make it better.
I mean,
not just better to
better.
Like, feel better.
If it allows me to do 1 or 2 key levels higher, so be it. We're not getting anything out of it anyways, except like imaginary temporary score. Like we can't buy anything with it. We don't get bonus valor because it's capped. So why not?
Yeah, that's just making the class feel better.
I mean,
and so speaking of, I did want to ask one last thing going into the end of the podcast. We're kind of reaching the end time. I really was curious with the new hot topic, the AOE becoming uncapped or rather soft capped. I am really curious how this affects tanks, because when I saw it, I was like, oh, DPSs are happy, but tanks already have a hard time keeping aggro. So I know that in their list of abilities that are going to be uncapped, Soul Cleave was there, dealing reduced damage past 5 targets. I know this from Prot Warrior that's not the greatest thing that a tank can do, and from my perspective as an average player, tanks being able to do uncapped like soft capped AoE damage was a way for them to keep aggro on bigger targets, because if Joe Havoc switches from target A to target B and you don't hit the target B because you don't have the cap, then you just lose aggro and Joe dies, and then it says tank aggro.
That sucks.
So I'm actually curious. I'm actually curious what you guys think of so far what they've announced by the AoE cap, and how do you think it will affect Vengeance in the current meta?
They killed my boy.
They
massacred my boy.
Yeah, they murdered Spirit Bomb. Legit.
took it out back behind the dumpster. No, I mean, Soul Cleave, honestly, like the change to Soul Cleave is good, because right now it's hard capped at 5, and it just means that we can get threat on everything when Soul Cleaving. And I think that's the case for all the tank abilities except Spinning Crane Kick, which hasn't been announced yet for monks, but it's a good change in general.
Russian Jade Wind.
Russian Jade
Wind did get uncapped,
but that was about
it. I mean, it's a talent, so.
But the change is good for most of the classes. But when I saw mine, I was sad. I was really sad, man. Because when I saw Spirit Bomb capped at 5, I was like, okay, this talent makes no sense now.
It really doesn't. It will, unless they give it a significant buff on the initial 5 targets. It's not going to be worth ever taking, because Soul Cleave will do the same thing without taking a talent, without spending extra souls
Yeah, without
And-
altering the gameplay, because when you play Spirit Bomb, you have to play kind of different because you have to do big Spirit Bombs with a lot of souls. Soul Cleave is just 2 souls, so like you will just lose DPS by playing Spirit Bomb on AoE. Yeah,
It almost feels like it's a targeted nerf for that one
It
single
is.
Chinese
is.
demon hunter playing it.
Yeah,
like this.
there is one guy. There is one Chinese guy pushing really high. He's like the first tank right now on score, and he's playing Spirit Bomb in high keys with a different build that we usually use, and it really feels like they nerfed it because he's using it and he's doing a lot of damage on
man.
big pools. Yeah. That's sad. Like when I saw that today, like morning, I shed a tear. I think. I really did.
But apart from that, like I'm happy about the change. We won't, or at least I don't think we will have aggro issues because
We
of
don't.
Yeah.
all those
We don't
DPS.
Yeah, we
Or
already
if we
don't.
have, it's because of the DPS blasting like the very same second your Elysian Decree animation is out or your glaive is flying on
Yeah.
the way to the target. But that's on them. Like we're not having.
No, I think it's
aggro issues.
It's a really, really good change for all the classes though, because like being outcapped at 5, when you have Fire Mage and Shamili and all this,
Yeah.
it just makes you sad, I think. And now being able to actually do some more damage past 5 will make so much classes like I don't know, Hunters being capped at 5, multi-shot not hitting more than 5.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't make
What is
sense.
that? What's the point? So yeah, even if it does less damage, they will actually do more damage. So it's just great for every class, I think.
No,
Yeah,
for sure.
That's
for
so good to me. I think the best thing to say is that the class is all fine.
It's
We are playing a really wonderful class. I love my class, and the class is really great. It's just, like I said, nitpicking because we usually do the high content,
Yeah.
and that's where it's lacking. But the class is so great. Like to me, it's the best class in the game by far. There is nothing that can
Yeah.
compare to it.
Definitely would suggest everybody to give Vengeance a try.
Yeah.
If you haven't
I
played it
will.
before.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. You have your Havoc at 60. I'll level my Demon Hunter and I'll go Vengeance. I'll give it.
I cannot wait to
Vengeance.
see you bunny hop into pack.
That's that's I want to do the damage. I want to jump and then I want to get called dead because I suck. But that's fine because I'm having
Well,
fun.
don't be mistaken. Then play Kyrian.
Kyrian,
You
for
have
sure.
to play Kyrian.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be all on that Philhammer Discord over there asking questions. It's all good. But guys, it's been one of the most fun actually podcasts we had in a while. So thank you for taking the time and joining. And hopefully we can do this again after 9.1.5 and get some dust settled in over there. If you guys want to, of course. Yeah. So we're gonna have all the links in the description, including Philhammer Discord, which we recommend you guys visit and get your questions answered over there.
yeah.
And all socials the boys want to shout out.
Twitches,
Yeah, Twitches,
all of that will be
Twitters,
down below.
all of that down in the description. We're gonna have them all there. Definitely recommend checking all of the boys out. And yeah, go play Vengeance Demon Hunter. It's fun. It's great. The people love it.
Makes our queue faster.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is why, because I'm gonna play, so we have the tank, so no bitch about it. I don't can find a tank anymore. But thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining. It's been a blast. And
Yeah, thank you. It was really a pleasure
for
that we
having us.
finally got
Pleasure to
do
me.
it.
Yeah.
Thanks for the invite. Yep.
That was really
Definitely.
cool. Okay, well, thank you very much, guys, and hope to see you maybe in 7.9.27.
7.2
I'm living
Legion.
in Legion, man.
We talked
again,
about
yeah.
Legion.
Next expansion is confirmed time travel.
Yeah.
Again, this time will work out.
Uh,
But yeah, thank you very much, guys.
And
Thank you for being here.
watching and or listening, depending on what you're hearing. It's Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. You can find us all over the place. It's fine. And you may have noticed, the podcast is on its own proper channel, right? It's on the Mocast channel now with all of the previous podcasts. You can go check them out. With a lot of we have that like the blood. If you're into tanking, right? We have the blood
think
decay
we
here. We
covered
have
all of them, maybe?
Prot. I don't think we have. Oh, we have Prot Paladin. We have Prot Warrior, Brewmaster Monk as well. So definitely check it out. That being said, we shall catch you next Monday with a brand new episode. That's how we talk. It's late. Okay, it's
More
been a hard,
Vocast,
long
more
day.
class specs. That's
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Take care.
I'ma do it /bow. Still I play WoW. Still I play WoW.